We got some news coming out of the camp of Nick Ball. You know Nick Ball, the WBA featherweight, England's very own champion Nick Ball. Yeah, well, we have some good news and bad news as it pertains to him. The good news is that he'll be defending his title soon against a guy that's actually in his division. But the bad news, well, that's more so related to who he's not fighting than who he is. And you know, champions always say that, you know, I'm down to fight anybody they put in front of me. And Nick Ball, he more or less says the same thing. But when it comes to selecting his opponents, the reality is that Tricky Nicky might be a little picky.
Hello guys, this is Rolly Romero.
Yo, my name is Nonito Donaire. What's up guys, Designer's Eyes.
Here with Bob Santos Boxing.
And I rock with Dr. Boxing Talk.
I want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Boxing Talk.
And I want to give a big shout out to Dr. Boxing Talk. Thank you for all the love, thank you for all the support.
You're rocking with Dr. Boxing Talk. Get your daily news from my man right here, the best in the business. Let's get it, baby.
All day, baby.
Amen.
Bam!
If I tell you I'm good, probably you'll say I'm boasting. But if I tell you I'm no good, you know one line.
Yo, what's good, Boxing Talk family? Welcome back to your favorite boxing news channel, Dr. Boxing Talk, and we are back for another YouTube video. Banger, man. Yes, sir. Yes, man. Remember what time it is? Doctor's in the house, man. So check this out. But before we get to it, let's go ahead and smack that like button. Let's do it together. Appreciate you. That helps us to keep going and growing on this YouTube platform. BTF, rise up. And guess what? You know, we got some news I want to share with you. You know, we have another title defense announcement that's imminent, you know, and this time is with Nick Ball, and he will be fighting a guy that's ordered by the WBA and President Gilberto Mendoza in Brandon Figueroa. And, you know, I like this fight because, like I said in the intro, it's about time that Nick Ball fought somebody that's actually in his division, you know, because his last few opponents, who was his last opponent? You know, when Nick Ball, he faced Sam Goodman. Well, you know, Sam Goodman was a highly ranked contender at super bantamweight, 122. You know what I'm saying? And then before that, he fought TJ Doheny, who was coming off of a stoppage loss to Naoya Inoue, you guessed it, at 122. And then before that, it was Ronnie Rios, who I like Ronnie Rios as a competitor, you know, but he only had 2 fights at 126 featherweight since 2017.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's 8 years. And so he only had 2 fights at 126 in the last 8 years, you know, if you count 2025, right? So it's like he's fighting guys that aren't really acclimated and familiar with the 126-pound division, you know. So that's why this is a good fight, because Brandon Figueroa, a former champion, you know, until he lost to Stephen Fulton for his WBC belt, you know, he's solidified at 126. You know, he has good wins over guys like Louis Neary, and like I said, he's been in the ring with Stephen Fulton. In fact, he only has 2 losses, and both of them come to Stephen Fulton. So I'm not mad at this fight, especially when you consider the fact that he is ranked #1 in the WBA. So from that standpoint, you know me, man, I'm a stickler to, you know, the rankings and appreciating the belts. So because of that right there, I cannot knock this fight, and I do like it, actually and factually. I actually do, you know, but I have to be honest as well, and I can't help but notice, because I'll be remiss if I didn't tell you this. There's an interim champion for the WBA. And that WBA interim champion would be Mirco Cuello, you know, the Argentine. And because Mirco Cuello, he's not getting the fight, it makes me wonder, like, why? You know, Mirco Cuello is coming off of a great victory, a stoppage victory over Sergio Jimenez. And he seems like he's available. Now, maybe the truth of the matter is they couldn't have negotiations. Maybe they tried and they failed with negotiations. Or maybe Mirco was injured, but not to my knowledge. I don't see that he's injured. Like I said, he had a nice win. He stopped Sergio Jimenez, who's an undefeated contender from Mexico, stopped him in 2 rounds. So why is he not getting the fight with Nick Ball? What's the point of having an interim title if you're not going to get a title shot next? You see what I'm saying? So I just feel like, man, once again, the WBA and President Gilberto Mendoza strikes again. I just don't really understand why Brandon Figueroa, who just lost his title, not last fight, but the fight before that. And then he has had a bounce back fight. So I'm not knocking Brandon Figueroa, because after losing to Stephen Fulton, he bounced back in a victory over Joet Gonzalez, where it was an okay performance. But should he get a title shot next when you have an interim champion? If anything, wouldn't it make more sense if you're not going to have if you're not going to have Mirco Cuello go against Nick Ball, wouldn't it make more sense to have Mirco Cuello versus Brandon Figueroa?
Yeah.
How did Mirco Cuello get skipped is what I'm asking. You see what I'm saying? Like, I shout out to Brandon Figueroa. I rock with the American. He's a good fighter. You know what I'm saying? And Nick Ball, the Englishman, hey, shout out to him. But I just don't understand the moves that the WBA is making, man. They have so many belts, and which I'm not mad at, but it has to be for a purpose. And the purpose of having an interim belt holder usually is to hold the belt for the interim or be between the full champion and the other guys. But how are you going to skip the interim champion, skip his shot for a guy that's technically below him? Even if he's ranked number one, you see what I'm saying? Even if he's a mandatory or whatever it is from the ranking standpoint, Mirco Cuello should be prioritized because he's an interim title holder. So he should get a shot at Nick Ball. But, you know, I don't know. Like I said, it could have been failed negotiations or whatnot. That I do not know. But I just think that Nick Ball, he's looking a little fraudulent, right? And then I know we like to blame the fighters. Once again, I'm not blaming Nick Ball because I'm not saying that he turned down the fight with Cuello or whatever. But when I say he's looking selective, the reason why I say that in the intro is because, like I said, if you look at who he's fought, ever since fighting Ray Ford, you know, which was a good fight and a good win, he hasn't really been defending his belts against guys that are even in his division, much less qualified or deserving. Shout out to Sam Goodman. He was undefeated when he fought him, but he was still coming from a division below at 122 super bantamweight. You see what I'm saying? And then even TJ Doheny, who he did not deserve it because he was coming off of a stoppage loss. But let's say you give it to him, but it's still like he's coming off of a stoppage loss at a weight class below. It'll be different if like his last fight was at a weight class below and he won or he won or he was involved in a close fight. He got stopped, and that was your defense. You bring like, come on, man. And then before that, like I said, Ronnie Rios is a good, capable fighter as well, you know. But Ronnie Rios, he literally only fought at the featherweight division twice since 2017. So how much is he really a legitimate featherweight at that point? So I just think Mirco Cuello, just from the, it doesn't even matter that Mirco was undefeated. That's a plus. But it just, I don't know. I just feel like it just makes us lose, those of us that know better and are paying attention, it makes us lose faith in the integrity of the sport, particularly the WBA right now, because it's like, bro, you have him as an interim title holder, but he's not getting a title shot. And that's usually what it means. That's what it's supposed to symbolize, right? And, you know, Mirco Cuello, it's not like he had a bad fight. Like I said, he could be injured, not to my knowledge. And I think he deserves the fight. You see what I'm saying? He's been in the ring with a guy like Suleiman Sagawa, you know, who had a fight with Bruce Shushu Carrington, if you remember that. And Suleiman Sagawa's been looking good too. But Cuello beat him pretty handily. You see what I'm saying? And I don't know, man. I just think it just seems like a slap in the face. Speaking of Bruce Shushu Carrington, you also have Bruce Carrington now. To be fair, he is a WBC interim title holder. You know, that means that he would be next in line for Stephen Fulton's belt. But Stephen Fulton is going to fight Oshiki Foster at a weight class above. So it seems like Shushu might just be elevated or may have to fight somebody for a vacant belt. So I understand not fighting him, but I think that you could even fight him right now because he's available. And from what he's saying, he would take that fight with Nick Ball in a heartbeat. You see what I'm saying? But like I said, I don't want to put too much pressure on Nick Ball. And I'm going to give it to the rest of the featherweight division as well, because the WBO champion, Rafael Espinosa, he's fighting number 9 ranked Arnold Kagai. It's like, what are y'all doing at the featherweight division? I personally think El Divino is the best in the featherweight division. No disrespect to the other champions, but I just believe that if anybody could get undisputed, I'll put my mother on him. I mean, my mother. Whoa. Pause.
No, did he?
I'll put my money on him. You see what I'm saying? So that's just my personal opinion, but even with him fighting Arnold Kagai, that just seems, no disrespect to Arnold Kagai, but it just, I don't know, man. It just doesn't sit well. You know, you're fighting the number 9 ranked guy. You could fight somebody else, you know, that's a little bit more deserving. And then, like we already talked about, the WBC Stephen Fulton, he gets a pass because he just beat Brandon Figueroa, and now he's moving up to go fight Oshiki Foster. So his departure from 126 is imminent. You see what I'm saying? Now, the IBF title holder, Angelo Leo, I got to give him this full respect. He's the only one that's doing what he should be doing like a champion. He's moving accordingly as a champion. He's satisfying his criteria and the obligations that he has as a champion, because his last fight was against the IBF mandatory Tomoki Kamada. So you can't really knock him. And then before that, he fought Luis Venado Lopez to acquire the belt. So you can't really knock him. Angelo Leo seems like he's the one that's doing his thing. Shout out to Stephen Fulton as well. He's moving up to 130, so he's planning on vacating the belt most likely once that fight happens. But I don't know what Espinosa for the WBO belt is doing, and I definitely don't know what Nick Ball is being allowed to do right now. Like I said, it's the mandatory, so I can't knock it too much. You know, he's the number 1 ranked guy, but you know, it seems like their priorities are crossed because he should be fighting Mirco Cuello. But that's just my opinion. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that, man. Who do you want Nick Ball to fight? Are you happy with the Nick Ball versus Brandon Figueroa fight? Like I said, I don't want to get it twisted, right? Don't want you to get it twisted and misunderstand me. I do not want to be misconstrued. This fight is a good fight, Brandon Figueroa versus Nick Ball. However, it just doesn't make sense because you have an interim title holder who should be getting the shot. That's all I'm saying, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Don't forget to smack that like button. But most importantly, remember, with God, we can do anything. Without God, we're nothing. The doctor's out. Peace. Hey, don't forget to check out the Patreon. The link is below where you get behind the scenes content and additional bonus footage, man. Appreciate y'all. Doctor's out. From the hood to college, both worlds they had to meet. 6 degrees between us, so cold we're about to freeze. But we're Florida boys, hot takes, we bring the heat. We're moving the culture, the engineers to the streets.